champ is here. I must be the greatest. The champ is here.
I'm going to continue to stand with the people.
The champ is here.
I will not lose.
I'm a bad man. I shook up the world.
Yes, welcome. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with we. My name is EJ, and I got my man.
My fault.
Yes, MH is in the. Hey, he playing that deep safety right now. He is the DB of the show, so he's making sure nobody gets over the top, man. But hey, man, we are Black in Sports, giving the voice to the culture that won't shut up and dribble. Here, interviewing the best in the game and in the boardroom, laughing at it all, covering it all while providing a platform to be heard. So you know how we do it, right? So we got to bring this guy in, and so usually, I want to make sure I get this right. So I'm going to read it. So please forgive me, but I want to introduce. Okay, we got top-rated speaker, consultant in leadership, personal development, and other topics. He got you. Okay, he is an author, 2-time. His background in award-winning operations. All right, so he didn't just start here from the bottom. He started from the bottom, not here. Okay. Working with college football championship, he's helped produce events like the Super Bowl, Final Four, NFL draft, you name it in sports and operations and entertainment, he's done it. So please clap it up for international storyteller, top 50 speaker of leadership, our man Will Baggett. Clap it up. That boy good.
Hey. What's going on, man? That is legit the best intro I probably have ever gotten, man. I feel like I want to snatch the warm-ups off right now and just run to the court, bro.
And that's the energy we want, man. That's the energy we want. So, all right, with that same energy, how we start the show, and you know it, you've seen it, and our audience knows it, is the shoot your shot moment. So with the illustrious background you've had, a lot of stuff, and I mean, even kind of going into, being an entrepreneur. So give us a shoot your shot moment. Now, it doesn't have to be in your career. It could have been back in the days, early on, early Will, current Will, but just give us a shoot your shot moment and give us a specific moment. And you could have won or you could have learned a lesson, man, but give us a shoot your shot moment.
Yeah, man. I would say that one of my best shoot your shot moments was when I got to Baylor University as a graduate assistant. Now, I was hired to be a grad assistant with the American Football Coaches Association. That was my job. And one of my mentors, whom you may have heard of, Jamil Northcutt, he introduced me to a guy named Kaz Kazadi, who was the strength coach at Baylor. And I went into his office just to make a connection. But I told him, I said, hey, I did strength and conditioning at Ole Miss in undergrad. I'm in grad school now. I'm trying to switch it up to the business side and just kind of move forward there. So I go and meet Kaz in the weight room, and I'm in my khakis and I'm in my white polo. And I go in there to say hello, and I meet Kaz for the first time, and we just chopping it up. And he finally says, yeah, I looked you up. I heard you got a background in strength. I'm like, how'd you look me up? I don't even have any social media. How'd you find me? I said, well, yeah, I used to do strength back in the day, but I'm switching it up now, getting my master's in sport management. He says, yeah, okay. I'll see you tomorrow at 6 a.m. And for the next 2 years, I was a volunteer black shirt strength and conditioning coach with my day starting at 4:15 a.m. and ending at 9 p.m. while being a full-time grad student, while being a graduate assistant at the American Football Coaches Association, while selling programs at women's basketball games, drinks at football games, and nachos and cheese at women's softball games. Right. So that was kind of one of my moments. But even beyond that, I learned a lot of lessons there. And a lot of my personality and approach to life came from those 2 years. I mean, I still have a bracelet on I've been wearing since 2012 that I've never taken off that says confidence is a choice. And we have ones in place of the I's, and confidence is a choice, the phrase. And our approach to that was we do one thing 1% better one day at a time. And that really just changed kind of the way I see the game. And the last thing I'll say to that, we had this situation one time where, we as black shirts are low men on the totem pole. I mean, the bottom of the bottom, scrubbing stuff, washing, all the towel, whatever it is, we're low men on the totem pole. And I noticed all the full-time guys had this Nike combat gear on, they were fresh. And I'm in starter gear that I wore yesterday. I'm like, bro, I'm trying to get some of that. And I went up to Coach. I was like, Coach, how can I get one of those combat shirts? He says, you'll earn your shirt when you figure out what you do better than anybody else in the country. And I'm like, I said, I've been doing my job. He said, well, that's the problem. You've been doing your job. And that's when I realized, like, going that second mile, and there not being any traffic when you go to second mile. And so I learned that there was, kind of a wrinkle or a gap in the organization where I could, wash out the bottles when after every lift and get the protein and get it with the soap. And so after every lift, I would be there with 2 buckets, and I got pictures of this, and 125 bottles full of water, soap and suds, and I'm just scrubbing, for the next hour. And that's how I earned my shirt. And it was one of the first times that I wasn't allowed to talk my way into something, to be honest with you. Right? I mean, I can talk my way around stuff pretty easily, but that really challenged my baseline. It really made me increase and raise my baseline to a new level, a new standard, and that's how I've been able to try to approach life ever since, and not just meeting the need based on what you can do and your natural gift, but hey, no matter what it is, giving 110%. So that's what I think was one of the biggest watershed moments in my life and career that really shaped me as who I am.
Love that. True indeed. So, Will, where does your love for sports start?
And honestly, man, I'm a high school has-been in basketball, man. I never made it past high school, but honestly, it's funny. I worked in college football for about 12 years. I didn't watch my first college football game until my freshman year in college. I did not see a single game. I just didn't grow up in a family like that. Like, my brother played golf and baseball in high school, and I was on the basketball team all the way through senior year, and I enjoyed it to a degree to where I thought about becoming like a physical therapist, and I went and did some job shadowing. I hated it, so I don't want to do that. And I didn't know what an athletic director was until like my junior year in college, right? And so it's just the information just didn't trickle down, and obviously we didn't have social media in the way that we have it now and all the information. And so
Black in sports
black in sports. I didn't have that. And so what I did was I went and bought this like 400-page book written by Dr. Glenn Wong, who was at Arizona State University. And it was called like, kind of career in sports, or how to build a career in sports. And I just read it from cover to cover. And that's how I learned, what sports is all about. And I think the love came from when I actually got to AFCA as a graduate assistant. And also when I was simultaneously doing strength and conditioning. I think that's when I fell in love with it. I liked it in high school and before. I enjoyed watching it, watching basketball and other stuff. When I saw the development, when I saw the life lessons, when I saw the transformation it could have in people, when I saw the camaraderie, like when you go into a stadium, there are few entities or institutions or any parts of life where you can walk into a room with thousands and thousands of people, or walk into an arena or building or stadium, and everybody in there is either team A or team B, right? Everything else, everyone has an opinion. They want to dissent to this, a Republican, Democrat, Independent, Whigs, whatever, right? You tell them it's a nice day outside. It's not that dang nice. You know what I mean? Everybody just wants to dissent to something these days. But when you walk into a stadium or arena, everybody's either team A or team B. And so sports, as you know, is a great unifier. And I think I fell in love with the intangibles of sport and what it can do for people and how it can change lives. And not only doing it from a physical standpoint, but also from a mental, spiritual, emotional, and wellness standpoint.
100% agree. So we're in Las Vegas. We currently reside here, and while we're taping this is the summer, and NBA Summer League is here. So give us quick scouting report on your basketball game from high school, your style of play.
Man, I was Curry before Curry. I'm joking. I'll be honest. I still play like 3 to 4 times a week here recreationally here in Dallas. My knees and my back don't allow me to move as fast as my mind wants me to move anymore. Sure. But let's just say in my prime, when I came across half court, I was in range, right? So you got to pick me up at half. And that was kind of, my experience. And, high school ball was so much fun, so many memories, a lot of running, a lot of conditioning, a lot of getting in trouble for other people's stuff. You know what I mean? But I wasn't like, crazy killer. It's crazy. Like I lived in the country growing up, and so I didn't have a lot of people to play with and practice with. And so all I did was shot all the time. Well, when it came to high school, I noticed that you had to dribble the ball, right? And actually I had to be a little bit more crafty. And so my handle was decent, but not what it needed it to be at my height, right? And so like thinking about like a 5'7" shooting guard, it wasn't the best, setup for coach, right? So I got any idea my thing, but definitely could have, worked on the hand a little bit more growing up. But, it was good times, man. I think I had a game high like 16, 17 one time. So I'll take it.
There we
There
go.
you go.
Yeah.
You and your brother super competitive?
Man, honestly, I would say so. So in my family, we are all hustlers. So I'm the seventh generation entrepreneur. My niece makes eight, and so basically every male on my side of the family, my dad's side of the family, and now adding my niece to the mix as the first lady, we're all entrepreneurs. We're all hustlers, and so the competitiveness is kind of multifaceted. It's not just necessarily in sports, so to speak. It's just competitive about life, and the way that my dad, kind of shaped us. My dad was originally. I talk about personal branding now, but my dad was really teaching me that growing up. He just didn't call it that, right? He just set a really high family standard, right? Like affirmations and things. He wasn't having us recite anything, but he would say the same thing over and over, and so it begins to become ingrained, and you start to have expectation, right? And he was a general contractor in the city, and built houses all around North Mississippi, and was well respected. And what he talked about was, he says, look, anything that you do or y'all do ties directly back to me and my business, right? So it's not the same thing as if I'm in my job role here. You can do something, I take off for a few minutes to come off, whatever, and I probably keep it under wraps. No, you're an extension of me. And so if I'm trying to lay solid foundations and build things, and I can't build my own kids up, right? It's not gonna look good. And so he was able to really tie it and really just show us, step by step, what the impact would be of our actions and our decisions, and how it affect the family brand, how it affect his work, and so essentially our living standard. And so I would say he did a really good job of positioning that. He just didn't have any fancy terms or colloquial or common terms that we use today to describe it, but he definitely did that for sure.
Absolutely. And a lot of our families always say you are my last name, right? Like
Oh, for sure.
Jerome Bettis said it at his Hall of Fame speech. You've seen other kind of stars or just people. And I just remember like my parents, my dad, like, hey, you go out there, but this is, our last name on your back, and you representing, the family. So go ahead, Mitch, my bad.
No, I mean Mississippi. So I wanted to kind of get a background of growing up in Mississippi. It sounded like you kind of grew up where Ray and Claude from Life got caught up.
running hoots just on the weekends, just running hoots.
Where they got caught up, man.
We on deck, Ray. We on deck. We on deck, Ray. Man,
the upper room.
No, but with G, man. Oh man, classic, man. Honestly, I grew up in North Mississippi, so it's not far from the Mississippi Delta, where I grew up. And honestly, man, I would say that based on the way that I was raised, it was kind of like this. It's like when you only know one way of living, there's no, it's just standard operating procedure, right? And so the stuff I would see, it was just normal. But then I moved to Texas for grad school, and I'm telling my buddy, Ty Brown was the guy who hired me at AFCA, just with ADU and D1 Ticker now. And I would tell him stuff or whatever. He says, yeah, bro, that's not normal. Like, nobody's doing that out here. Like, you mean like you don't get tagged in like random mixtapes on Facebook like once a week? Like, that don't happen to you? Like, you don't have a Pookie, Ray Ray, Pooh Man, Cornbread, Frostbite, Pistol Head, Pistol Pete. You don't have, okay, all right. You know what I mean? So
and
I didn't
that's
realize.
Just your cousins, right?
Right. Oh yeah, absolutely. So you know what I mean? I didn't realize I had a different standard of living that wasn't normal. And obviously Mississippi gets a bad rap for like racism, what have you. But honestly, I just always kind of stayed in our lane. And my dad always taught us to coexist. You know what I mean? Because there's nothing you can do to control human will. But I've always said that, hey, I'd rather an outright racist before someone I got to wonder about every other day, like how you gonna feel on Tuesday, how you gonna feel on Wednesday. If I know where you stand, then I know how to move with you, or know how to operate or coexist with you any given day of the week. And so I just kind of learned to appreciate and just have a live and let live mentality. But I did see some stuff now growing up. Now, just make no mistake, I saw some stuff. Wasn't exactly normal. And it's my hometown is very interesting because we probably have some of the most oddly successful people per capita that you've ever seen in a Mississippi town. It's very weird. Like Zaytoven, the big time producer, like they work with Gucci Mane and all these other people. he used to play drums at a random church, like right in the middle of the city, like just play drums there for years. And then he moved to Atlanta and he blew up. It's like just crazy stuff. We had a guy that was in the president's cabinet of Joe Biden. We have a guy that's the president of the National Bar Association. We have actors and we had a town of like 15, 20,000 people. And it's just crazy. We have NFL players. You name it. It's been amazing to see just what people have gone on to accomplish and just the hustler spirit. And I'd say the biggest thing about it was my parents it was no gray area when it came to academics. There was like, go get as my dad would say, either go get your lesson or come home and get a shovel. Like there was no in between, right? It was very, very structured. And then the other side of me, like the rebellious me, I was in the streets, right? And so but I had enough of a foundation by the time I got to that point in my later teens to where I could compartmentalize it, right? I could make my own decisions. Like, yeah, I knew the hustlers and the trappers and the wannabe rappers, and I knew what they were doing, knew how they were moving. Like, it's stuff I can't talk about on this show for obvious reasons. But I had enough of a foundation to see the academic side of it and also see the hustler side of it and see how they could coalesce, right? To really really build you as a person, because you need to be able to be well-rounded, in today's society, right? And especially when you're working with people in the capacity that I do, relatability is one of the biggest factors that plays into, public speaking, right? And so I can tell people, like, I've literally seen it where, I've seen 8 cars outside my house that belong to my family. And I've also seen my parents open the oven to heat the home. You know what I mean? I've seen both sides of it, right? And so having that relatability factor, I think, has been a huge help. And I credit that to my upbringing, no matter how country bumpkin it was,
No, that's huge. Now, so Stan, you talked about Baylor, but your undergrad was Ole Miss. So
Ole
was that
Miss.
just kind of like a natural progression? You were staying like close, or like how did you get to that being the final decision of where you wanted to get your undergrad?
Man, yeah, to be honest with you, man, I actually went to Mississippi State my freshman year. Yeah, I kind of rebelled.
Really?
Yeah, so the first football game I watched was a Mississippi State football game. And I'll never forget, I almost decided I was going to change my major because I went to a football game that season where Mississippi State had played Auburn, and we lost 3-2. We lost 3-2 in a college football Division I SEC conference game. We lost 3-2, and we sat through that for 3.5 hours. I was like, I can't do this. I can't do this. I can't unsee that. I can't get my time back.
Right.
And but yeah, I ended up transferring to Ole Miss and finishing my undergrad degree there, and that's when I started working in Olympic strength and conditioning and got my certifications, and it was the best decision. And my parents had actually moved from Grenada, Mississippi, to Oxford, where Ole Miss is, about a 45-minute distance or kind of range there, and it was just good to be able to be and see them all the time, right? But also, I picked up a job at Walmart, and so I was working as an overnight stocker, aisle 4. I had to catch up, Lipton tea, salad dressing, pickles, right? And that aisle, hey,
aisle 4.
hey, pull everything to the front, baby. Hey, keep it zoned, pull everything to the front so the customer can reach it. And I always go by the quote mentality that how you do anything is how you do everything. And that was what I did that summer. And then I got transferred to day shift and just kind of rolled from there through graduation. But it was kind of like the Oxford Mall, because we didn't really have a mall in Oxford. And so I got to see everybody because everybody would come through Walmart. So it was really cool to be able to make friends. And they would accuse me of never doing anything, but I always looked busy. So it worked out.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I spent some time in Montgomery, Alabama after I graduated college. And it's the same thing. The Ann Street Walmart was the mall. I mean,
Yep.
Everybody was always there. Strength and conditioning, man. The process of preparing athletes' bodies in different sports and different, I guess, strengths and talents with their bodies and all that. Talk to us a little bit about that process and how you got into that.
Yeah, man. I actually fell in love with weightlifting when I was in 7th grade, and my cousin Lars, he's a professor now in organizational psychology. He would always come and drive to get me to take me to football workouts, and so he graduated about 4 or 5 years prior to me, but he had moved to Mississippi, and he would drive like 20 minutes out of his way, like completely opposite direction, to pick me up and take me to football workouts with him. And I was probably 7th grade around that time, and I would lift with the 7th grade, group, and he would, do his lift when they would do with the high school team and varsity team. And I just quickly realized, like, I didn't play football, but I was stronger than most of the football guys. And so I was in there throwing some weight, and I just enjoyed the aesthetic part of it. At that point in time, it wasn't really just a mental, development thing for me. It was just more about, aesthetic and putting on some heavy weight and moving something at a really, really fast rate and just enjoying the camaraderie, screaming and yelling a little, you know what I mean? Just kind of getting it out, men being men. And so I enjoyed that part of it, tremendously. And, I was squatting like 400 pounds in high school, and I just enjoyed it. And then I started, got into like some like kind of pseudo bodybuilding. And I didn't really understand the difference between bodybuilding and personal training and actually like functional training for athletic performance. Right. And so even to this day, I got really tight lats because of all the bodybuilding stuff. And so when I'm doing cleans now, like my workouts, it's hard for me to get my elbows through, and I'm paying for that. But I would say that, it was really fun, especially getting to, work with different teams at Ole Miss. Because when I was at Ole Miss, I did only Olympic sports because football was separate. When I got to Baylor, I had, football, I had women's tennis, I also had equestrian, right? So we would start equestrian workouts at 5:45 a.m. and then I had football right after it, and I had women's tennis. But that was interesting, like 5:45 a.m. and you got like 80, screaming young ladies, you know what I mean? Is you got to put through a workout, and like that's when I really learned how to work with and move large groups of people, right? Whether it's to verbally and or just with different tactics, right? And how to maintain their attention. And so I always tell people that there was a great deal of sharpening of the axe that I really didn't know what it was contributing to, but I can just kind of point back to it now and say, you know what, that experience helped me in this role. But I really think I enjoyed the most seeing our freshmen come in, like just doing all the goofy stuff, like just doing the most goofiest stuff. I mean, getting in trouble, doing plate pushes. We're rolling the whole field, and like they're rolling like a pig in a blanket, 100 yards and back. And then I'm seeing the growth into their like junior and senior year, pre-transfer portal, mind you, it's 10 years ago, right? And now they're holding guys accountable, right, for not doing what they're supposed to be doing. And so seeing that, and also getting the breakdowns and that we would get from the head strength coach and what he was telling the guys, and then building them as men and really building true character. That's what I think I really enjoyed the most. And even to this day, like, I live here in Dallas, and I went to school at Baylor, and I still see a lot of my players around the city and just at gyms and different bars and things like that. And when I see them, they still call me coach. And, I don't yet have kids. So for me, coach is one of the best titles I have right now. And it's just a pleasure to still have that, even in the fact that I was just a volunteer, intern or black shirt at that time. And fast forward to now, I actually still coach. I go out to TCU once or twice a week because we're a Coach Kaz, same guy from Baylor 10 years ago. He's not at TCU now. And so I go out there once or twice a week to go out and coach up the guys, because I look at it as, if you're going to be in the role that I'm in and working with student athletes at the collegiate level and the NFL level, you have to make sure you understand what the collective consciousness is, understand what they're going through, what they're listening to, what their mental looks like, what they care about. And so it's kind of like a dress rehearsal for me. And so when I go into these spaces and places, I'm like, yeah, I know what this means. I know what this slang term means, right? You just don't miss anything. And it's being authentic to you, but also, again, that relatability and empathetic part of it, because I've immersed myself in their environment by waking up at 5:15 a.m. and driving 45 minutes, for no pay, and doing that once or twice a week. So I think it's that sacrifice that creates that separation when it comes to getting on stage. When you talk about competitor, I'm pretty laid back in most areas of my life. When I get on that stage, I just see red. It's straight Thanos mode. So you know what I mean? So that's kind of what I would say.
That's interesting because for those that have had that experience in the athletic weight room, there's a lot of different personalities and a lot of
Hmm.
areas of strengths and want to and
Hmm.
desires, and you kind of get it all. It's a little different from actually playing the sport. I think strength coaches have a special part in all athletes, kind of mind and soul, and it's almost like another family member. You kind of be a counselor. You got to meet them where they're at in a lot of different aspects. How do you apply that to we'll get into what you do now, but some of those kind of foundational things of meeting people where they're at?
Yeah, absolutely. I use a lot of those tactics and a lot of those lessons every single day because, like you said, we spend the most time with them, like especially in the summertime, like summer workouts. I mean, we spend the most time with them overall, and so there's a lot that comes with that, right? And this is again before they're required to have psychologists on staff. That was us, right? And so now it's a requirement at Division 1 level and maybe some other places as well and other levels, but that was us and it fell on us oftentimes. And so I think the biggest thing was being able to maintain that balance between, hey, I'm going to hold you to a really, really high standard. I'm going to coach you really, really hard, but I care about you. And so what we kind of talk about it is when we stop coaching you, we stop caring about you, and we no longer see you as a contributor to what we're trying to build. And so we just start letting you, skip reps and just get away with everything and not punishing you. And we say we're gonna, you did X, we got to punish you with plate pushes or a board push, and we're not holding you accountable to that. Now we look soft, we look weak, and now we get into the season and we got a bunch of penalties and false starts, and we're wondering where it came from, right? It came from the summer because they thought, okay, well, it's okay. Well, they throwing trash on the ground, I'm throwing trash on the ground, right? And that's what most people do. They regress to their mean or regress to the average. And so it's about getting people like I was once in that position to understand, like, yeah, you can give 70% and coexist and probably cut the mustard. But what happens when we give 100%, no matter what the competition is or the guy running beside you? And so it's very strategic in what we did in terms of how we group guys. Because if you got a 4-3 guy that's running with the 4-6 guy, we're doing sleds on Fast Friday, he's going to slow down a little bit because he's going to, he's going to look pretty fast, right? He can take the gas off a little bit and still like he's moving pretty good. But if we put him beside another 4-3 guy, now we've increased the competition. And we kind of, although we're after the same goal collectively as a unit, what we've done is we built this thing called co-opetition, right? We're collaborating, right? And we are coexisting, but we're also competing. So now we got a great co-opetition type of environment, and that rising tide is going to lift all boats. And so the same thing comes, when I'm doing things in the speaking world. I spoke at the Youth Detention Center last week here as a juvenile jail here, for lack of a better term. And there was 12 guys that earned the right to be in the room based on good behavior. And they are put through a program with a nonprofit third party outside of the jail that comes in every second Wednesday, and they give them motivation. They bring in speakers. They give them encouragement, and they had an affirmation they have to memorize. Well, they're supposed to memorize. There was no penalty for it, but out of the 12 guys that came in, 2 had remembered the affirmation, and they sat right beside each other. Right. And that was not by randomness or coincidence, right? Because A players really, they coexist with A players. What Saban said, mediocre people don't like high achievers, and high achievers don't like mediocre people, right? And so being able to make sure that they were connected, that they understood that, hey, they're set apart, right? And you all had the same 24 hours to do the same thing they did, but it's also being able to create a little bit of competition within that, but in a healthy manner to where they're not exiled or they're not being resentful, towards the guy. So it's a delicate balance, right? You have to do where you have to recognize them, but don't overdo it, because now you're gonna like separate them from their peers, and they're not gonna be able to coexist with the guys, right? Because you think you're better than us, this and that. So it's a real delicate balance. The same thing comes from in the spaces I'm in now. You're going to have your A players. You're going to have people that are locked in, that are smiling and look at everything that you say, and they just writing notes, and they're about to start a whole fire. They're moving so fast, and writing notes. And then you got people in the back, right, that came in and decided no matter what they hear today, no matter who's in the room, they've decided that they're going to keep their glass turned upside down. Not going to make it half empty, half full. They're going to turn it upside down and not even open themselves to receive, right? And so part of what I enjoy doing is that winning them over, but also understanding and addressing the people that can spread to people around them, and that cancerous mentality can spread easily because, again, the human condition is community, and they'll be around each other a lot more than they'll be around me as an outside speaker and party. So it's a mental gymnastics, right? It's a sociological kind of jungle gym that you have to be able to navigate effectively to do this job, the right way, or do this work, this hard work the right way. And so when people think I just get up and start talking to a group, I'm like, you're sadly mistaken. So
No, this is all good. I mean, that's the perfect transition. So we're going to jump into we call it the game. This is where we talk more about, your career. And we're going to focus more on the speaking career, but please feel free as we're asking these questions to intertwine, any of your other experiences. But, the focus is going to be kind of what's just amazing things you're doing in speaking. So I kind of want to start off with this question and ask you, man, what's the shortest connection between two people?
Man, the shortest distance between two people is connection. It's always going to be connection. Some people say laughter, right? I think laughter falls under the umbrella of connection, right? Because you find something that's funny and you both find it funny. There's a shared value or shared interest or shared emotion in finding something that is comical. And so I think connection really encompasses anything. Shortest distance is connection. Can be vulnerability, right? It could be past experiences or past misery. It could be upbringing. It could be anything, right? And so I think when you can be open and vulnerable, I think that's going to create a great level of connection. And funny story I heard online, there was this lady who talked about this group of billionaires, and they said the only way you can gain access into this billionaire group is if you had been arrested, if you had been fired, if you had been divorced, or if you lost everything and had to build it back from scratch. And that was a requirement aside from having the net worth to be in that group. And so there was some shared struggle in there, because in any given room, like any sample size of any group of people you pull together just off the street, there's going to be the bell curve. The bell curve is going to persist, right? In most cases, the low, middle, and average. And it's not necessarily tied to aptitude. It may just be socioeconomic status. It may be IQ, it may be EQ, it could be any metric, but that's going to often apply. And so when you're able to create a level of connection, you're able to humanize yourself, you're able to tear down some of those walls and barriers to really create that connection. Because really, honestly, the book, the Hues of Hope book, is all about creating connection and learning from the unusual suspects, or being careful not to entertain a stranger, for many have entertained angels unaware. And so that's where I kind of wanted to come from that side, but also understanding that in life, we all need people. Like, they did a study, they put someone in isolation for like 2 weeks with no connection, no community, no access to internet, phone, or anything. And the person started hallucinating, right? We were built and meant to be in community. And so that's why I think that connection actually starts.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. That's good stuff. So just as far, man, she has something just on connection.
No, go ahead.
So over 250 and counting keynotes that you've done, thus far, right?
Yes,
And this is as a professional. So because I'm sure you've done more, honing your craft, right?
absolutely.
What is the most requested that, these universities and these Fortune 500 companies, what's the most requested topic, right? Because you do cover, as we did in the intro, what's the most requested topic that they're asking for?
Absolutely, yeah. So it's shifted a little bit, and I've had to adjust over time. I would say the most, and I would say this is across the board. If you look at any kind of rollout or any kind of report from a speakers bureau, the most common topics at the corporate level are going to be leadership. DE&I is phasing out, unfortunately, as we all know. The motivational pep talks are still hot, believe it or not, right? And also, I would say like high performance type stuff. That may be a little bit more tactical to just the motivation, the hoorah stuff, because people still want to be educated and entertained, that edutainment, so to speak. So those are kind of some of the bigger ticket items, right? And so leadership is such a ubiquitous topic. It can be spun 50,000 ways, right? And so leadership at the corporate level is definitely the most requested. At the collegiate level, where I started, definitely the image, branding, because I started off doing executive image, and that was all about how you show up, how you present yourself, how you dress, how you talk, how you speak. And I still have semblances of that content in today's speech and today's talk, but I've had to adapt it to the times, right? And understanding that now more student athletes and people are interested in side hustles and entrepreneurship. Back then, like in my first book, it was aligned with executive image and a blueprint for a successful career. And that was kind of, staying inside the lines and going in a traditional career path, which is totally fine. And what I did for 12 years, right? But as things have evolved and as a collective kind of approach to saying, hey, things are expensive. I need other ways to generate income, in some ways to survive. I've had to adapt it to make sure I'm addressing what I call the economics of life. And so now I'm talking about the compound interest of relationship building, right? And so we all know compound interest in finance, but what about the compound interest of you making a deposit in someone's life and vice versa, and what that can grow to over time? Because without relationships, I don't have a job, right? That's just really what it comes down to. And so I think the biggest thing has been just being able to be adaptable across the board, but definitely leadership and image. And at the core of it, I'm always going to mix in my core values, no matter what the talk is. And so in any case, I'm going to say 60 to 70% is going to be core foundational content. And there may be a good, 20, 30, 40% that may be adapted specifically to that group. And then you also have to keep in mind attention spans and level of comprehension. And so if I'm speaking to, like I read to a group of first graders and second graders in New Orleans with the Marines like 2 months ago. And with that kind of group, it's a lot of, hey, repeat after me, right? Follow along, right? And you get into higher levels, it's more comprehension increases, right? Intellect, go increases. And so when learning and lived experiences are different, all the way to the corporate level to where the attention spans are actually longer. And so you don't have to do as much kind of hopping and skipping or as many activities or as many engagement exercises. You still need to do activities and engagement, but you don't have to do as many because you may be in a room with, I have one coming up with 1,500 people. It's not practical to do some of the things I would do in a room full of 100 people. And so it's all about having different tools in your tool belt to know. And so when I get requested by a group, I'm going through a whole mental rubric of what questions to go through. Okay, and will I be on the ground level or I'll be on an elevated stage? All right. The light setting, the lights are very important because the lights are dim and it's after lunch. People are going to get that itis and want to go to sleep, right? The rounds, if they're going to be in full rounds, there'll be some backs turned to me when you turn the chairs so they're all facing, or do half rounds, right? It's going to be theater style, classroom style. So if it's going to be straight theater style, they may not have places to write, right? So we got to take that in consideration as well. So it's a lot of different things that I go through. And one thing I don't do, it's the only thing I'm a diva about. I don't use handheld mics ever. I've never used one. I just don't use them at all. I'm either going to project my voice or I have to have a lapel mic because I use my hands a lot, and I have a clicker that goes on my finger, and I use that clicker to click through my slides, so I still have full use and full visuals of my palms and my hands, because I'm certified in body language, and the hands and palms are very, very critical to showing openness, honesty, trust, and connection, right? And so it's a really, really like tactical approach. And all these books, you see behind me are the books I read and went through to understand the human psyche, human psychology, how to read people, body language before I ever picked up a microphone. And so that's why I talk about when I'm, because you'd be surprised, like when everyone can do what you do and have the freedom to do what you do, because, the freedom of speech is the First Amendment right. And everyone, I assume, has a mouth, right? So theoretically, everybody's my competition. Everybody, being honest with you, right? And so you have to learn to create some real separation when everyone has the ability and the right to do what you do with no degree or certification or no real rite of passage in order to be in this side of the business.
That's amazing. And I mean, I'm gonna have to ask you some questions offline. I had an experience recently that it was very, very uncomfortable from a presentation standpoint, just the setting. And so you were talking about lights and man, we gotta talk offline about that. But I did want to kind of ask you, adjusting to the rooms. You mentioned it a little bit, but how do you kind of maintain yourself in those different rooms, if that makes sense?
Absolutely. Yeah, I would say, we've all heard the analogy of you can be a thermostat or a thermometer, right? And so when I walk into these rooms, part of it is understanding, okay, where I am on the agenda. Is it a morning presentation? Am I kicking off as a kickoff keynote? Am I after lunch? Is it an evening presentation with student athletes after they've been through a day of classes and training, right? And maybe a little hungry or a little lethargic, right? I have to take into consideration the time of day and what the audience has either sat through, been through, walked through, went through that day, right? And so if I'm on the back end of the agenda, What have they heard before? So sitting in other speakers, if there is an actual program or conference that I'm speaking at, to understand and be able to tie into their messages and be able to dovetail off of them to show continuity. So that's one piece of it. If I'm going to be the only presenter, then I have to come in and completely set the tone and set the temperature from Jump Street, right? And one time, I think when I kind of found my stride, I was about 40 presentations in at this time, and I was still kind of finding my true style. And what helped me do it was I was at a conference at the NCAA. They don't mind me saying it. And they put me after a mental health panel and right before dinner. They put me right there. I'm just like, and I was like, and I had to come in, I had to turn it up, right? And it turned out to be one of my best reviewed speeches ever. This was 2019. And then I said, I get it now. I have to be at this level every single time, no matter what's in front of me, behind me, or otherwise. And so part of it is that, and is understanding those things I talked about before. The other side of it is coming in and understanding and having my strength coach background, to be honest with you, right? I know how to change the timbre of my voice, right? To be softer or to be more authoritative, and know how to kind of be more professorial, or how to set a tone. If I go and talk to a football team, it's different than talking to the Olympic sports. Whole different thing, right? And also it's about using words that are monosyllabic. And so you're not using words with a bunch of syllables, not because people don't have the comprehension skills, but because you're processing a lot of information, and there's a lot of sensory overload that can happen at one time. There's visuals on the screen. There's the phone in their pocket. There's the words you're saying. There's the dinner or the lunch they're going to eat after. There's a day they've had before. And so there's sensory overload. And if you are distracting them trying to sound smart, they're going to tune you out because they have a lot of things on their mind, or things they're trying to think about. They got to test the next day. You just never know. And so that simple, relatable storytelling and analogies that really hit home are really help with what really help with retention. The way that I do it is I cluster my talks in terms of, so you have different types of learners. So you have learners that are auditory learners. You have learners that are visual learners. You have learners that are kinesthetic. And so I have parts in each of my presentations to whatever concept I'm covering, say there's like 3 or 4 major themes in our presentation. I'm going to have in theme 1, 2, 3, and 4 an auditory aspect, a visual aspect, and a kinesthetic aspect, and to make sure I'm hitting them from multiple touch points and hitting it from multiple sides. And that way intention will be increased through reinforcement, but also through attacking, different sensory inputs. So that's kind of my approach. So yeah, I'm telling you, hey, look, if you want to get more, monetize your message conference, October 4th and 5th, Dallas, Texas.
All right. He already jumped to it. We're gonna get to that. We're gonna get to that.
Yeah.
And, so this is going to be the word of Black and Sports word of the show, monosyllabic. That was a $10 word, man. But we appreciate you sharing it.
Man,
all right.
Keep the change, man. Keep the change, my brother. Keep the change.
So you talk about culture, right? And the importance of culture. I'm pretty sure you build that into, a lot of your conversations. How much of that, I guess, how do you go about that, right? Because we both know there's companies that don't have culture. And it sounds great to kind of go in there and either, if you're a leader, of course, you want to be thought-provoking and establish that culture. But a lot of people that are coming up into, any kind of world, but I feel sports is really one of the worst when it comes to culture. So how do you attack that when you talk to, a lot of the people you talk to are in that sports realm?
Yeah, I would say when it comes to, those aspects, of culture, there's oftentimes there's the mission statement, right, and what they profess, but the actual execution of that oftentimes falls short. And so what I try to do is I make sure that I am looking at it from multiple angles. And oftentimes you're going to get some of the best, I guess, the best insights from the people that are on the front lines, like, the receptionists. People, when you have the Zoom calls and they got 3 people on them and you see one person's really disengaged, really doesn't want to be there, or, doesn't turn their camera on, that's going to show you more and more about the culture than what they could ever say verbally, right? And so I try to make sure I observe that. and understand that to tread carefully sometimes, right? Because if you come in and you're saying some things that make sense and are true, and these companies, know they're falling short, they're going to be like, wait, they're going to feel attacked, right? Not going to bring you back. And so it's one of those things where, you want to make sure that you are massaging the message, right? And making sure it's in a way that it can be received and appreciated. Because if you come in there and middle fingers up, guns are blazing, then you'll turn people off in some ways. And so that's kind of like, again, the navigation and the verbal judo you kind of have to do. And so I think also coming in with positive energy, being open, connecting with people maybe the night before, getting some insights, understanding on discovery calls. Hey, what are you dealing with? What are your pain points? I'll be able to work that in. Any specific stories, milestones, news clippings, current events that are going on, and being able to incorporate that into the talk. It just shows that you are kind of dialed in. But to be honest with you, culture can shift in an hour, right? It can be things you can introduce, but it has to be carried out over time on a consistent basis for real change to happen. And I'm cognizant of that as my position as a linchpin, but I'm not the be all end all that's going to really change and affect that culture. So I'm mindful of that.
Love
you
verbal
mentioned
judo.
you mentioned Zoom in one of your talks and presentations in 2019. So obviously the pandemic, how did that change your world? What did you have to adjust? Those type of things.
Yeah, honestly, yeah, you get real crafty, and I think some of the things that seem like they can be drawbacks turn out to be really positive things on the back end, because obviously in the pandemic I had no other option but to do virtual, and nowadays and getting that sharpening and doing like 30 or 40 virtual presentations, you get pretty good. And one thing I would say was a benefit was you could see everyone's name on the screen. Whereas in most rooms, you can't see that unless they have the table tents. And that's, few and far between. And so it kind of helps you with kind of engagement and calling on people, directly, and just understanding that, but also understanding the drawbacks. People are driving and doing other stuff. They got other tabs open. And so just understanding that these things are happening, right? And it's not an indictment on what you're presenting or saying or lack thereof. It's just that, some people, again, come in with their cup half empty, some cup half full, some had a cup turned upside down. And so now having done that and getting that sharpening and putting in those, it wasn't 10,000 hours, but for lack of a better term, putting in those hours, now I'm able to leverage that in today's day and age, because I have a client that came through last week. They want to do a 3-part Zoom series, right? Just because their company is all remote and they're spread out all around the US. And so having that kind of in the bag, so to speak, has now been a kind of conjunctive type of thing, or a value add that can be, and I can do it from my living room. And, I've been in situations where I've been on site doing an in-person presentation, and I go back to my hotel, do a virtual that same day within the next hour. Right. And so kind of double dipping. And so in a lot of ways, it's been a huge, huge benefit.
That's awesome. All right, let's jump into these quick hits. That makes you ready?
Yeah, Will, just some quick hitting questions for our listeners to get to know you better. You a morning or night person?
Ooh, both. I'm up before you and I'm up after you.
A good night, a good nap, or sleeping in?
I'm gonna say good nap, 100%. It's been shown that can actually reduce chances of heart disease.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So our boss is that.
Yeah.
You get little nap pods underneath the desk.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You Apple, iPhone, or you Android? Green bubbles.
Oh, blue bubble gang. Come on now, what you talking about?
Talk to him.
Bubble gang.
Talk to him. Get on your boy.
All right, it's been great talking with you, Will, man. It's been
Get
great
on your boy.
Thank you, man.
I knew it, man. I thought it was some vomit on my screen when EJ was texting me, man.
There we go.
I know it's hard when you get on the internet, man. I know you got to turn around 3 times, click your heels together.
I'm telling
all the stuff
you,
y'all do with Androids, but no, it's all good. Whatever keeps you connected, my brother. Whatever keeps you connected to the world.
Yeah. So you tell me, you said, connection, was the shortest between two people, man. So, I mean, if I text you and it's a green dot, man, we still close.
Yeah, we good. We locked in, brother.
It tells you a lot about people, too, on that.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah.
All right.
He didn't want to mess up the group chats. He messed up the group chat.
I'm telling you, all of them. You more of a thinker or a doer?
Ooh,
That's a good one.
That's a good one. That is a great one. I'm a doer, man. I say I'm a doer. I do think about, try to strategize, but once I get rolling, yeah, it's all downhill, and I'll build that plane in the air.
I love it. Physical strength or mental strength?
Mental strength, mental fortitude is everything. The problem is not the problem; it's how you respond to it.
Summer or winter?
Summer all day.
Work, play.
Play. Keep coloring outside the lines, baby. Play.
Love it. Money or happiness?
Happiness. If you got joy in the journey, you know, money only solves money problems, right? So you got to be happy before you get it.
If you can rank to, I wouldn't ask you to rank 200 plus presentations, but maybe your favorite one, and it may be one you would like to have back.
Ooh, my favorite one, I would say, was my first one. My mom booked it for me. October 2016, in the back of a church. There were 6 people: my mom and my dad, my 3rd grade English teacher, 2 teenagers, and a toddler in a stroller. And that was my first audience. Right. So that was my favorite one because my mom booked it for me. I told her I wanted to speak, and she got me my first gig, and it was on Youth Day in the back of a church in Coffeyville, Mississippi. So that was my first one. One I would like to have back probably was probably one I did in 2021. I was actually sick at that point in time. No one really knew, and you know, I was going through some physical and mental, challenges from a medical condition I had, and I feel like I did the best of what I could do at that point in time. But I also had not presented in person in about 6 or 7 months, and it was my first one back. And I think I could have prepared better and simulated that experience better to kind of get back into it, and just understanding that, you got to keep building that muscle. And when you have that much time away from it, you can lose a step. So I think that I would think about that one. Yeah.
Love it. Your world, EJ.
All right, so I got one to throw in there too. So, man, you visited a lot of schools. What is your favorite part when you visit this, or even the pro teams? What's your favorite part of the visit, or kind of, that whole, the pre-work you have to do before you get there, or even when you get there? What's your favorite part? Or even the facilities, right? You got to tour some like ridiculous facilities. So what's your favorite part?
Yeah, man. I would say it's kind of a loaded question, man. I would say, like, I'll point to a few different experiences. Like, I'll never forget in 2018, I went to Florida State University. And at that point in time, they had Derek Coles, Ashton Henderson, Derek Mitchell. Like, my guy Chris was, straight dogs that are now all in these like high level positions. They were all at the same place at one point in time. And so it's kind of like a, future forward, future backward type of thing, to where you didn't know where these guys were going, but I kind of sensed it like, wait, how are all y'all here at the same time on payroll, right? Because you typically don't get that many A players in the same space that can coexist with each other and care about each other. But all those guys have done it the right way, and they've sustained success, and they've grown to levels that they're at, for a reason. And so I would say, that was one of my favorite things to see. And I would say getting off the plane, like I feel like the Undertaker when I got off the plane. Like when the planes landed or the jet bridge, I'm on the ground in the new city. It's kind of like a walk-up music. Like I got my AirPods in, I put on my walk-up song, and I just, like I said, from the minute I touched down to the minute I hit the stage, it's like it's a switch that's flipped. And I really enjoyed that part of it. And then lastly, most recently, I was with the Miami Dolphins, and getting to see the facilities are awesome. But I was with my guy, Alexander Martin, down there. And when I tell you, from the time I landed, from the time I left, we laughed the entire time. We went to this restaurant called Mastro's in Miami. Oh, my God. They had this butter cake. Like, you want, man, I can't say slap your mama. I love my mama, but you get it. And man, had some lobster tails. It was just amazing. And there was so much good energy in the room. And there's a difference between when you're just kind of around people and you kind of hide, you got to kind of hide parts of yourself because you don't want to seem too much or whatever, this and that. Everybody was completely loose. There was no judgment, and everybody was. And I would say this for lack of a better term, because we had ladies at the table too. There were very talented ladies, but everybody was a made man or made woman, so to speak. And so when you have that kind of group, similar to what I talked about at Florida State, and even seeing it there, it was just a there's no side eyes, there's no resentment, there's no anything, but just good positive energy. And so I think, it's kind of like I said, a collection of different experiences. But the people, when there's a really, you talk about culture, when the culture matches what you're experiencing, when you're around them and you're not trying to escape to your hotel room or trying to just hurry back on the plane real quick and you want to hang around after the fact, that's the best experience you can possibly have, when it's all vertically aligned, from root to tooth. So that's what I would say is my favorite experience.
Let's go from root to tooth. I love it.
Yeah.
All right, man. So, man, we're getting close. We're in the winner's circle. This is kind of the platform where we talk about, something that you want to promote or just something you got going on. And you got a few things, but we're gonna start off with this new book, man. So coloring outside the lines, man. You got the shirt on.
Mhm.
I don't know if people seen the cinematic trailer. We'll repost that, as we kind of pump this show as well.
Thank you.
But talk about it, man, because even though the word color is an acronym and kind of how you go about the book and some of your probably keynotes. So tell us a little bit
Yeah.
about the book, and I think you touched on the genesis a little bit, but just recap for our audience.
Yeah, man, absolutely. The coloring outside the lines narrative, man, is something I hold very near and dear, to my own heart. And I actually started this book in 2019. And when I tell you my life is a complete 180 from when I started it, is it's an understatement. And so having to pick it back up, and I'm one of those people where like I am a doer, but if I don't feel like it, the rebellious me kicks in, and I'm just not going to do it, right? Whereas my mentor and business partner Darren Roberts, he can go write 6 hours straight for like 10 weeks and not even blink. Phone in the car, no distractions. That's not really my thing. I'm kind of more the free flowing, creative, and I want to experience life, and so I can put my life into the work, right, and not so much a regimented schedule where I'm being forced to pump out words that may not be or may not reflect what I'm feeling or what I'm learning in that season. And so the book itself, man, is very interesting in the sense of how it came about. So it started in 2019, and of course 2020 hit. A lot of things change, job changes, relationship changes, health changes, business changes. I mean, everything happened, that I could ever imagine. And it wasn't very pleasant at the point in time. But they say in the good, in the old church when I grew up, they say you'll understand it better by and by, and I understand it better, by and by now. And the way it came about is in 2021. Actually, I was not working in sports. I was still doing the speaking, but I was trying to make sure I had something to supplement my income because I didn't know where things were going to go, how long we're going to be in that thing. And so I took a job as an associate teacher at an elementary school called KIP Truth in South Dallas. And it was there that I connected with a young man named Jalen. And Jalen was basically a younger me with a little bit less structure. And so I just kind of took a liking to him, and we just became buddies. And over time, built a relationship. And one of the experiences I remember the most is he was in the classroom and he was do his coloring and stuff. He was young, like kindergarten, first grade, and teacher would always be on him, as you saw in the video about, hey, Jalen, stay inside the lines, stay inside the lines. And he rebelled against it until finally he got tired of her saying it. And she said it again one day, and he was like, you know what? It's not that I can't stay inside the lines. It's just that this paper is not big enough for me to express myself. And that's when I thought about it. I said, man, okay, have I been playing too small? Right? Have I been trying to, fit a round peg into a square hole, so to speak? And so what you saw in that video promo was partly like a pretty much true, a natural, it was actual depiction of actually what happened. And so the kid that's in that video is the same kid from Kip Truth Elementary in 2021. And we stayed in contact this entire time. Right. And so that was by design. And that was his first time ever acting. Right. And so just want to expose him to something different. And he ate it, like he tore it up. So that whole color outside the lines piece, there's actually a quote by Einstein about coloring outside the lines. People don't know that, right? And he talks about if you want to make your life a masterpiece, you have to learn to color outside the lines. And so if one of the greatest thinkers and mathematicians and one of the highest IQ people to ever walk the planet talked about coloring outside the lines, then it must be something to it. And so I've just learned to embrace that, whether it's the stickers that I put on my suitcase, whether even on my wall here, I have.
Shout out. I know a sticker that made that.
Yep. Yes, sir. You already know. Posted on the story, baby. And even in my wall here, I have like 19, 20 pieces of original art, all different colors. The way I live my life is non-traditional, right? And the things that I do, they don't always make sense to other people. And I've learned to, make them make sense to me, because we don't get a do-over. We got one life to live. And if you want to, I say leave a legacy, you have to color outside the lines, because what God told me one time, he said that you don't die or pass away like when you take your last breath. I mean, physically you may be gone, but you really are gone. You truly pass away the last time someone says your name, right? And so I live with that approach, to where I want not my name to be said for the sake of ego or bravado, but to say that I left my mark here and that he was here, right? And he made something of it, of the opportunity and the space. And so the book is kind of just a kind of whole storyline about that. And about 65 to 70% of the book actually is true. And the stories that seem the most untrue are the ones that are true, right? The things that maybe the most outlandish are actually true. And so I wanted to capture it, and it's based on true life events I experienced. And I wanted to bring it into a fictional, kind of inspirational and true narrative that would inspire people. Because the thing I hear most from when I talk to people, whether they're interested in speaking, whether they're interested in doing anything in life, is this imposter syndrome. And it is running rampant through people, our community, other communities, the world. It's person or race agnostic. And it's because people have become prisoners of other people's paradigms, wondering what they're going to think, wondering what questions they're going to get asked, wondering, got to explain this. And I thought you were doing this. Why are you doing this now? And I've learned I just don't care about any of that, because when I lost everything, there were a few people around me that knew what I was going through, a very small group of people. And so when I got back on my feet, I said, you know what? I'm only going to care about those people and the Most High when it comes to my moves and who approves of them. Outside of that, I honestly and truly, wholeheartedly, candidly can say that I do not care. And that has been the whole complete difference in my life.
Let's go.
So
What have you learned? And you kind of touched on it, but what have you learned about yourself through the process of writing the book?
I learned that I have a love-hate relationship with writing. Like it took me 5 years, right? Let's just keep it real, right? It's too long. But when I get into the flow state, I mean, it just comes, because I posted about this on LinkedIn recently. When you are writing a book, you're not just choosing the part about holding the physical copies and the book signings and the sales. You're not just choosing that part. You're choosing a lot of lonely nights of typing as well. Like if you want to decide that you want to have an aggressive workout plan or a diet plan, you're not just choosing the mirror pics and the flexing in the bathroom. You're also choosing a lot of boring meals, tough workouts, and calorie counting, right? And so it's kind of like that third law of Newton's third law of every action has an equal and opposite reaction. And so I've learned through a book I actually read called the art of the war of art. So not the art of war, the war of art, right? It talks about the resistance to creativity and how mediocre people have all the confidence, while the intelligent people with the most to give are sitting at home doubting themselves the most when they could be sharing their gifts, right? And so it's kind of that resistance in that thing, and I kind of learned about. And what happens is there's a lot of groupthink because of social media. A lot of us are seeing the same posts, and so it creates a level of groupthink. And there's one of my favorite thinkers, right, and writers and thinkers, like idealists, is Naval Ravikant. And he once said that if everyone is thinking the same, he said if everyone has the same disease, no one believes they're sick, right? And so, in thinking about that in my approach, what can I do? And some of the things we talked about to again create that separation, but also within myself, I've learned that I'm a very organized scatterbrain. If that makes sense. I have a lot of different interests, and I am unapologetic about my desire to maximize my potential, whatever that is, and whatever that looks like. And I have learned that I'm much more productive when my play to work ratio is in favor of play, right? When I bought me a bike, I ride 3 to 5 miles every morning, and that's where I get my best ideas from, right? And so I learned. Last thing I'll say is that, and this research on this. This is not just me. That when your brain is at rest, that's when you get your best ideas. That's been shown time and time again. Because if you're always constantly engaged with something and you're listening to other people think and them talk and whatever, you're not going to know what you want. You're not going to know what you're great at because you haven't taken time to do any introspection and learn different iterations of yourself to where you can later have the influence you want to have on the world as a whole. And so those things I've learned about myself is to rest, is to be out in nature. I don't do well indoors a lot, and that's where I kind of find my energy and my kind of reconnection, to the creator. And that's what I've learned. That's what I say I've learned.
That quiet time, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, man. So want to jump into this as well. You shouted it out, but monetize your message, man. You have a platform, the Platform Summit coming, what's it, October 4th through the 6th in Dallas,
Yep.
Texas, man. So tell us about it and why
Okay.
we should go to that conference.
Yeah, absolutely. So there, I'm gonna probably, put a little chin music on this one, but again, understand I do not care. One of the things that me and Darren Roberts set out to do was to do this the right way, right? And so the first thing we did is we had our assistant go through and look at all of our competitors and break down their entire business models. We got a whole spreadsheet longer than a CVS receipt, right? That breaks down all of their business models, all their platforms and systems, and their reviews or testimonials. We know everything about our competitors.
Mhm.
And we sought to build it in a way that was done right because a lot of people in today's day and age are they're not making money off what they do. They're making money off telling you what they do,
Telling you. Yep.
right? And so we wanted to be the industry leader in doing it in spirit and truth. And so between Darren and I, one, we're like best friends. And so that helps with the culture, right? We're tight. Without this, we're just tight. And so we've done about 800 keynotes between the both of us. And Darren was one of the people that trained me when I first started in 2017. And through his teaching and trainings, that's a huge part of where I am today. Like, Darren built me in a lab from everything that he knew and everything he learned, and he gave it all to me, freely given, right? And so we thought that it would be, appropriate to build something where people can come in and get actual training, no fluff, no BS. The systems we use, the platforms we use, the way that we, craft a keynote, the way that we do our business development, the way that we follow up, the way we set our pricing scales, the way we organize our businesses. Like, I'll give you one example. I saw Darren do this, and he don't mind me talking about it, but Darren's at the 25K level when he goes in and open his mouth, right? What he did was so strategic. He has his book called An Audible, great read, pick it up as well. And he was speaking to his group of about 600 people in Denver, and so he got the rate, his normal speaking fee, but he also donated 600 books to the group. Well, the key was to that is the group was a nonprofit. And so he was able to get a gift in kind letter for the fair market value of the books. So that went from a $25,000 day to a $34,000 day in realized income. And so these kind of deep strategies we teach and talk about. And I'd say you have to have a book to do this. Like, we have people that we've trained that are doing well without a book, but they're also seeing that, okay, I've made it here to get to that next tier. I made it to produce something, right, to get to that next tier because it gives people a physical takeaway. It's like a really long business card, right, so to speak. And so it's just a
Like that.
huge, it's a credibility factor as well. And people get caught up in sales and this and that. Like, listen, you can sell 5 copies or 5,000. They still have to address you as author, right?
And
That's
it's a
the key.
tool.
That's the key to it, right?
It's a tool too, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. That's absolutely a tool. Absolutely. And so
And shout out
those,
to Ed, who's one of the ones that you've who's been on the
absolutely.
show. Shout out.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we've had, great success with people getting keynotes, and we have the actual, receipts. And that's one thing that our competitors can't stack up to, right? And we are very confident in our model because we do things the right way. We do it with integrity. And we put in our 10,000 hours. And so the way that we frame it, the way that we price it is based on the value and of what we think the product is worth, but also understanding that with one booking you will make 3x your investment with a normal booking, based on what the normal rates are for speakers that are kind of starting out. And so, so it's something that we enjoy doing and something we love. But most importantly, we are thrilled that we've actually had our students and people that work with us actually getting booked in and having success. Because in our honest opinion, honest estimation, starting this off and being in year 2, we don't make from taking 2 days out of our schedule what we would make 2 days of speaking. It's not even close, right?
Right.
So we're truly in this, one, to build something to a level where it can be that, in all candor. I'm not going to lie about that. But it's also the people aspect. And we didn't realize it last year, but there was a whole community built within that group at platform year 1, to where there's been 3 to 4 people that are now working on the same team that have been hiring each other and promoting each other for different opportunities. And so again, that comes down to culture, community, environment. And none of these people knew each other, but the environment was set for them to be, open and create that shortest distance between 2 people, which is connection. So platform is coming October 4th through the 6th, Dallas, Texas. The best experience on the market. We stand by it. We stamp it. Come out. We love to see you there.
There you go. Well, we're going to definitely put all this information in the show notes. So just definitely jump down there to kind of get more information. Or, you can use that tool, Google, whether you have an iPhone or Android. They both can get you to that same destination. So anyway, man, just loving the time, and the time is flying. So I don't know how much we're going to get into the acting and the real estate, but maybe if you want to touch on what you say.
Yeah, I'll do it. Let's do it. Yeah, I can touch into it. Yeah.
So what's the acting bug? And it's awesome that you were kind of passing that on to the young gentleman that was in the Color Outside the Line promo. But what got you into that? And like, you're popping up now, man. You say you're hot the streets.
man, honestly, and that comes with the Color Outside the Lines piece, because I hid that for a little while, right? Because it wasn't directly in line with what I do, but it's more related than people would realize. So the genesis of it was, at 6 years old, there was a movie that came out in 1994, and I was 6 5 or 6, right? I was like 5. The movie was Street Fighter with Jean-Claude Van Damme. I don't know if you've seen it. And so I watched that movie religiously for like a month straight. I'm not playing with you. It's where I memorized the entire movie, line for line, word for word, syllable for syllable. And I made my dad come in and sit down and watch it with me while I recited the entire movie. And that's what he was kind of giving me the side eye, and he realized, he's like, okay, something's either really wrong with you or really right with you, right? And that's when he got me tested and all that kind of stuff. But since you got the church plays and Easter speeches and all that kind of stuff, right? But I always just enjoy it, because for me, I'm an introvert. It doesn't seem like I do extroverted things, but I'm an introvert, and acting allows you to get in character to where you can be who you want to be for that time and space and that moment in time. And so I enjoy the freedom, right, outside the lines of myself and the confines of my own psyche and my own body. And so I just kind of kept at it. I started in 2015, 2016 in Atlanta doing background work. And one of my first gigs was in Being Mary Jane. It was a show with Gabrielle Union. And my job was to walk behind Gabrielle back and forth. And we shot that scene for at least 2 hours. I just walked back and forth. That was my only job. I had one job, walk behind Gabrielle Union, right? And so that was cool. And obviously I'm not like any in principal, we call them hero roles, where you're like front and facing. That's what the big paid jobs are. Right now, I'm just doing mostly background work, and I enjoy it, right? Because I get to, maintain my other schedule and other things, and just go pop on set for a day or two, and do some background work, and may see my arm or half my face in a commercial every now and then, and it's cool to see, because it's a different experience, right? And you realize that these people don't walk on water. Like they just use their 24 hours differently. And one of the coolest experiences was working with Zoe Saldana. And I'm literally 4 feet away from her. She's sitting right there. I'm just like, okay, all right. She got 2 arms, 2 legs. I mean, she doesn't float when she walks. You know what I mean?
I don't know.
I don't know about
that. I saw feet hit pavement. Okay. I saw feet hit pavement, right? But I understand what you're saying. Like, she's special, right? Let's make no mistake. Only female actress to have 4 films, gross over $2 billion. Make no mistake. She's the list. That's it. So make no mistake. Take nothing from her. But aside from her acting prowess, getting to see how detailed she was in her craft and how she approached her craft was uncannily interesting. because she is detailed and she doesn't take any crap on set. I mean, she is detailed. She doesn't play. And what it's done is it's enabled me to learn how to produce my own stuff. And so the kind of cinematic video that you saw for the Hues of Hope book promo, like I wrote that script myself, from start to finish, with every sound, every fade to black, the ambiance, like everything had to be to the T. And I got that from being on set and watching Gabrielle and watching Zoe Saldana and watching these people in big production companies. And the thing about it, people don't realize this, but for a 30-minute episode that you may watch on TV of your favorite show, I'll give you an example. A 30-second segment, 30 seconds, not 30 minutes, 30-second segment from your favorite TV show probably took 2 hours to shoot. 30 seconds takes 2 hours to shoot because of the angles. We got alpha camera, we got beta camera, we got Charlie camera, ABC. We're going to shoot it from this way, that angle, this angle, because once you get to post-production, they only have what they have, right? And so you can't miss the opportunity. And so you're seeing how detailed they were, to the point where there was one scene we were doing with Zoe Saldana, and she was walking to the bar, and the chair that was beside her was just blocking her back by like a quarter inch. And then we reshot it because the chair was just blocking part of her back and the camera was facing that way. And said, nope, reshoot it, reset. You know what I mean? It's that level of detail. And that's kind of the same approach I wanted to do with my stuff with a much lower budget, you know what I mean, so to speak. But that also helps me understand how to create an experience, right? Because what you see on TV and the sound effects and the lighting and the music is all about creating an experience and evoking an emotion because you're not physically there. And so that has helped me in my own production, but also being on stage in terms of, voice inflection and intonation, pauses, cadences, things like that. And I would say it's definitely closely related. And truth be told, that was my first love, right? And I don't think I would say, I hope I'm, decent at what I do. I don't think I'd be that decent without that training and that exposure, because it's especially doing theater, because theater and film are two different things. Theater is one shot, one kill. There's no resets. Where you're in film, you can reset, replay, do what you want to do, CGI, mix in some stuff or whatever. And so just understanding the pressure that came with theater, doing that first, makes film a lot easier in rolling into that.
Love it. All right. So about to get out of here, man. And this is the part, even though you've been doing it all throughout the episode, and we really appreciate that, but this is the part we call the assist. All right. So this is where you can give us a coaching gem. It's a quote you live by, something you would tell your younger self, or just, maybe it's something you would tell the audience if they want to get into speaking and coaching. But give us the assist.
Man, I'm gonna have to let me go to the archives, man. Let me go to the notes here, man, because I got some stuff in here. Man, I'll say this. I would say one of my favorite speakers on the planet, well, he's God rest his soul, he's now deceased, but it's Jim Rohn. And I listen to him. I have a routine before every speech. I take an ice cold shower and I listen to a Jim Rohn speech every single time. It does not change. And one of his major points was, don't wish it was easier, wish you were better. And that's my approach. And so if I don't get the expected outcome that I desire, if I don't achieve what I said I want to achieve, if I don't earn what I want to earn, it's completely my fault. And I think what the world needs is more accountability and extreme ownership of their stuff and their, SH, word. And that's the kind of approach I try to take in my life, extreme ownership. And where I am right now is a direct kind of, accumulation of what I did 5 years ago and the decisions I made. And so where I'll be 5 years from now is on the same ilk. And so having that approach of extreme ownership allows you to celebrate, yourself when things do go your way, but also gives you the humility to go back to the drawing board and unpack things and see why they didn't go your way and find room for improvement. Because one thing, that we'll do, I saw it was a Kanye rant, and it was super funny. I saw it today on Instagram, and he said, man, they made the Twix candy bars, they made them bigger, right? Just to make us fat, right? Well, not necessarily. right? You always have a choice. You have a choice, right? And so I really just embody and really appreciate the power of choice and the opportunity to prepare and to get better, because the will of a man and the skill of a man can be the same, or they can be polar opposites, because your skill is what you have, the ability to do, but your will is your decision to maximize that skill, whatever that is, and then for the best possible outcome. So I would say, don't wish it was easier, wish you were better. Take extreme ownership and your life will improve.
Let's go. And gotta love getting the Kanye rant into the show. All right,
Natural,
MH. Hey, please hit us with these final thoughts, MH.
Yeah, Mr. Old Kanye. I love that extreme ownership, man. Will, this has been a pleasure, man. It's been like you said, an experience. So we really appreciate your time and look forward to supporting you in all your work in the future. So thank you for showing up here.
Oh, likewise, man. It's not easy to listen to people talk for over an hour. So I just want to thank you all and congratulate you all on nearly 300 episodes, wherever you all land. Congratulations on whatever that number is. And just appreciating and respecting the consistency, right? Because at one point in time, you chose to do this, but there was also a point in time when you had 0 listeners. And, you decided to push through that and to build it into an award-winning podcast. So I want to salute you, brothers, and commend you for what you're doing. And the road to 1,000 episodes continues. So don't let up.
Yo, road to 1,000, man. Such a blessing, man. Well, long overdue, man. We appreciate you and all the support that you give us off camera. So thank you for stepping on camera in your busy schedule. Continued success to you. So we just definitely want to thank our guest, Will, for jumping on. And we'll put all the contacts in there. That was my fault. I usually have that scrolling, but we're going to put all the social, the website. So go ahead and give them the website so they can hear audio too. But we're going to put that in the notes. So go ahead, Will, give them the website.
Yeah, willbaggett.com, 2 L's, 2 G's, 2 T's, right? Spell it all the way out, baby.
There it is. So just go to the website. Like I said, we'll have all of that in the show notes. Thank you, our listeners, for listening. Hope you enjoyed this episode. If you enjoyed it, please share with 1 or 4. Just make sure you subscribe, do all that good stuff, and know we drop a new episode every Thursday. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel, because, as you know, visual representation matters. If you see it, you can be it. And as always, please stay safe, practice gratitude, and know we're rooting for you.
Screaming, all us blacks got is sports and entertainment until we even.
Assuming I'm rooting for everybody that's black. Yeah. Yeah. Assuming I'm rooting for everybody that's black. Yo. Look. Assuming I'm rooting for everybody that's black. Spent about 2 racks on handmade new rags. Assuming I'm rooting for everybody that's black. That's everybody from sports to college class to rap.